Welcome to Hogstye Court. The plaintiffs, defendants, and court cases are all real. This is not a dramatization. Plaintiff Alex Zeese is suing the Redskins and Jamal Forrest for battery and emotional distress after a lifetime of abuse at the hands of the team. But Mr. Forrest alleges the Redskins never agreed to be a good team and never promised to win any games. He's countersuing for legal costs. All rise for the Honorable Steve Thomas. I'm that guy that keeps falling asleep behind the defendant, making the producer wake him up. This is the Hogstye Court.
Welcome to the Hogstye with your crew, Adam Terrest, Alex Zeese, Sean Conti, and Steve Thomas. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Well, all the judges I think of are like the old-timey, like seersucker suit type judges.
There's some of those, but a lot of times these judges are judges that just don't really want to work hard. You know, so they get themselves elected. I've had judges like reschedule trials the morning of because they just decided to go on vacation. You know, I'm dead, honest to God, dead serious.
It's kind of weird because I got a judge that works with. He's a retired judge though. So I was kind of figuring like, why in the hell is he doing simple attorney work when he was just a judge? I figured, you know, maybe they just don't. He just doesn't care. Doesn't care for that work.
Maybe right.
Could be.
God. Well, now that we're all here in Hogstye Court, I'm glad we all have our white powdered wigs on so we can get into this hardcore football discussion. So I think we were going to, am I getting this right? We're going to start with the poll this week first, Steve? Is that what we're doing?
It's always good to get the poll first.
Well, let's do what
I was waiting for Alex to come up and have some sort of snide joke with that one.
I just laughed, that's all.
It was the noise.
All right.
He made the snide noise, and that's all that matters.
Okay, well, this week we're doing a wide receivers on the position group breakdown. So the poll question was on wide receivers. We got good response on this one, so I'm very happy about that. Poll question this week was, what Redskins wide receiver, meaning not Jordan Reed, is going to have the most receptions this coming year? And your choices were, we have four choices as always, Terrell Pryor, Jameson Crowder, Josh Doxson, or the ubiquitous other. So, I think we started with Jamal last week, so let's start with Alex this week. Alex,
Okie dokie.
What do you think? Tell us who you think the public's going to vote for and who you would have voted for.
See, I actually think it's one and the same, which I often do because I'm arrogant. But I think it's
asshole.
Jameson Crowder this week, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I think he's quickly become not only a fan favorite, but we keep on hearing things from guys like Doug Williams and Jay Gruden how he might be the toughest player on this team in terms of his mentality. And I think that bodes well for him. Top it off, it's his third year in the system. Him and Cousins have had a great rapport so far. I could easily see him having a breakout year this year. You know, I look at guys like Santana Moss, who he reminds me a lot of. His third season is really when he blew up and had that first post 1,000-yard type season. So that's where I'm going, Jameson Crowder.
Okay. Alex, what do you think?
Hold on,
let's save you for last. Let's save you for last because you always get these right. So let's go to.
Oh man, I was just gonna rip off. I'm
not gonna let you do that. That's why we're going to Sean first.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. This is a tight ship that we're running here. Okay, can you restate the question again as it was stated to the listeners?
As it was stated to the listeners, what Redskins wide receiver, i.e., not Jordan Reed, is going to have the most receptions this coming year?
Yeah. Okay. I think that I like Alex's answer for my answer. I think I'm going to go with Crowder too, but I think that the listeners probably went with Pryor. I think a lot of people will probably I agree with Alex, but I think Crowder's continued improvement is something that the more hardcore fans notice. I don't know if the casual fans are going to notice that as much, even though it's clear to us talking about it every week. So I'm going to say most people said Pryor. I'm going to go with Crowder.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Jamal, now we get the guy who gets them all right.
Oh no, I was doing that. Somebody, I thought it was a very important phone call, but it turned out to be a one of those people trying to talk about insurance, and I wasn't interested.
Right.
But anyway,
what could possibly be more important than the Hogstye? I mean, come on.
Hey man, you know what? You're absolutely right. I showed my lack of dedication. I apologize.
There you go.
It's all right.
All right. So you said who I think, and then who I think the people voted for, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
so personally, I thought Jamison Crowder. The reason being, and this is who
There we
I
go.
voted for as well. Jamison Crowder, because the simple fact that when I heard Jay Gruden, and it made so much sense when you lose Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon, even though Jordan Reed was still here, the offense still goes inside out. It doesn't start from the outside and goes in. So you have Jamison Crowder, who's primarily in the slot, and Jordan Reed, who's also lined up at the tight end position. When it comes to receivers, I feel like Jamison Crowder would lead the team in receptions at that position. I think that the Twitter voters also voted for Jamison Crowder because they believe that he is the next. And these are I'm not over exaggerating or anything like that, but they feel like he's the next Antonio Brown, simply because there were legitimate comparisons during last season. So they believe in the hype as much as anybody. So I think Jamison Crowder was the band folks too. So.
That's a bold comparison.
Oh, it was there.
Antonio
And
Brown,
it made
Jamison
sense.
Crowder?
It's like not statistically, not like. And then on top of that, I guess I wouldn't say it's just statistically, but some of the things they do on the field as well. They was comparing.
they know?
I stayed out of it honestly, but I did look at the arguments out there.
Because do they know that Antonio Brown had like 100 receptions? I mean, that's a nutty comparison.
Oh,
I think,
no. But yeah, I understand now. But they were talking about like early on in his career, like who can he be? Because Antonio Brown did start off pretty slow, but like the qualities in Jamison Crowder does have some resemblance of Antonio Brown. So
Sure.
Okay.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. It's kind of blasphemous one way or another, but okay. So the voting public. Okay, so
Yeah,
the voting
let's hear it.
public
What happened?
voted for Jamison Crowder by a vote of 58%.
Smart people.
Oh,
58%.
Wow. I didn't give him enough credit.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody.
And Terrell Pryor was number 2 at 32%. Josh Jackson
There we go.
came in at 7%, and 3% of you out there really have no faith in our starters and voted other. Now, personally, I would have voted for Terrell Pryor. I don't agree with the voting public. Jamison Crowder is going to all of a sudden emerge like that. Not because I don't like Jamison Crowder, but just, he had 59 receptions. Let's transition into, I guess, our breakdown. Oh, well,
Right.
you know what? Before we do that, I forgot to read comments last week.
Oh.
It wasn't because we ran out of...
Last week, or are you reading this week?
No, I'm reading. I forgot to read the public comments last week, not because we ran out of time, but because I forgot. So I don't want to forget this week. So let's read a couple comments here we got on this poll. This is from Dave, who's one of our longtime listeners here. He says, Crowder, the most receptions with Pryor, the most yards and TDs. The potential of this trio is limitless. The Posse 2.0. There's a positive person for you folks. A guy named Stouts Brewing Company, who is at Bruce Allen God. Wow. Bruce Allen God. Yeah.
Hey, if you are actually a brewing company, direct message me.
He says
That's not a joke, by the way.
He says, I'm thinking Pryor will have the most receptions, Crowder will have the most big play receptions, and Reed will lead the team in TDs and first down receptions. Every time we get a comment from a female, we have to read it because we want more female listeners here. And so this is from Kimberly Parkhurst.
We love the ladies on the Hogstye.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's helping us, Sean.
No, that's really not. That might get us
I was
arrested.
hoping you wouldn't say anything.
That might get us arrested more than anything. At Sweet Parkhurst, she says, I think the ball will be well spread out. And then the guy who's the Joker who wants to ruin our poll says, save your opinion at I Don't Cheat. Said, I voted for other. I voted other for Ryan Grant. So thanks a lot.
Oh, wow.
Jesus
What a
Christ,
silly
Ryan
Billy.
Grant. That's a troll.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Steve, I just feel like you got to remember, because you're not being hard on Crowder, but you're picking Pryor. You got to remember, Crowder's like the senior man on this team right now in terms of the wide receiver
I understand
core.
that, but just give me a chance here.
All right.
So,
Well, why don't we start with Pryor then?
Yeah.
You can make your argument.
Everyone
Yeah.
gets a chance.
yeah. So Cryer, 5'8", 174. He had 59 receptions as a rookie. He had 67 receptions last year as a second-year player. Averaged 12.6 yards per return. And that's great progress. But I think the idea that the guy is going to jump up to like 85, he's going to make such a leap. He's going to go from. He's not changing positions. He's still going to stay and be in the slot, right? And he's
No. Gruden's putting him outside
see.
too.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
he said
we'll see.
primarily,
Yeah.
so he'll be playing both outside.
Yeah, And last year, he had an elite guy in Deshaun Jackson, who attracted double team attention. He got Pierre Garçon, and this year we've got receivers who I think we're all high on Terrell Pryor on this show, but I think the NFL at large isn't exactly terrified of him. So you're going to make
the national media
I'm a little
does not give us a lot of credit about this receiving core.
So you're right. And
I'm very cautious about Pryor too. I'm super hands off with Pryor so far.
Well, I'll get to here's my point. So we're going to make Jameson Crowder the number one receiver on the team, and he's going to make a jump to like 85, 90 catches because that's what it would take. I don't think he's got that in him for just a third-year player with what most people would think of as a lesser receiving core around him. I like him. I think he's a great receiver. I think we hit, we got a good hit on him, especially for being a fourth-round pick. But I think it's a lot to ask the guy to make a jump from 59 to 67 to like 80, 85 receptions in a single year with the talent, with that kind of talent around him.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think last year, who led the team in receptions last year? Was it Pierre?
I think so.
I believe so.
Probably.
And I don't even think he hit 80. I don't even think he hit 80. Did he? He had like 70.
No, we were spreading the
Yeah,
ball
and
around
talking,
last
I'll look
year.
it up.
Yes. All right. So off the top of my head, I don't think he hit 80. But even still, like that would be my argument. Like that would be my argument, Alex, because I think they spread the ball around a lot. I wouldn't necessarily expect Jameson to hit 80 plus receptions. I do think Jordan Reed can hit 80 plus receptions, but obviously this is receiver talks. I think that Jameson can definitely hit that 70 plus area. I shoot with ease personally, because there was games last year where like later in the year when Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon were getting their shine, Jameson Crowder got phased out the offense. I don't know if that was intentional or more so the fact that Deshaun Jackson and Kirk Cousins was connecting deep more so often than earlier in the year. But Jameson Crowder, he definitely had a shot to hit 80 plus receptions last year, in my opinion.
Crowder led. Deshaun. Pierre Garçon led the team last year with 79
Get a grip,
receptions.
Steve.
I know, sorry.
Yeah.
Jordan Reed had 66. Jameson Crowder had 67. Deshaun had 56. So that was last year.
So
I just
if
think
we're
it's
saying
so
80
close.
is the marker.
I just think
we're
it's a big leap, in production. That's all.
I don't think it is, because what's the jump from 67 to 80? It's basically one catch a game more, I don't think that's
true.
Well,
infeasible.
I'm high on Terrell Pryor is the other thing here. I realize he's only been playing
wide
he's only
receiver for
playing,
a year or two.
Yeah, 1 year really. He played one game at wide receiver back in
Well,
2015.
or two was this year. He's been. I count the season as started after the draft.
I mean, but this guy, he got 77 balls last year, 1,000
Sure.
yards, 13.1 yards per reception. He's a classic X receiver. Big, tall, strong, fast.
Sure.
He's a classic primary target. And I think it's going to take Kirk Cousins has said this. It's taken him a while to kind of get used to, playing with Pryor. But I think when it really comes down to it, the guy who's primarily in the X slot is going to get the bulk of the balls. When you have this much talent as Pryor. Now, I've had some of the beat guys write stuff about, how the Browns may have had questions about his attitude, last year. We'll see. But I have faith.
You know what? If I were a wide receiver and I was on the Browns, I would have an attitude too, because look
Yeah,
at
are you
that.
kidding me?
Every week you have a different quarterback throwing you the ball, and none of them are good. I would be angry all the time if I were a Browns receiver.
Oh, me too. I don't blame them at all for that. I got to say about Pryor, Steve, I hear everything you're saying, and I love him too, because the speed, it's amazing. The size, it's amazing. The wingspan, it's everything that you want. It's going to help in the red zone. Why do I feel like I smell like a broken ankle in week 2?
Oh, wow.
That's pretty negative, man.
Because, well, here's why. I know that's super negative, but here's why. Let's hear me out. He's got those long, gangly Robert Griffin legs that just aren't made for abuse or holding up a lot of weight. You watch him in games, and he's so fast, but at the same time, he does not fall very well. He's not super well in control of his body, I feel like. That's my bigger concern with him, and I feel like we're going to I guess I'm saying I'm trying not to be negative, but I'm saying I don't know necessarily that it's a foregone conclusion, Steve, that Terrell Pryor is going to come in and be just the number one guy with the most receptions and the most scores. I think it's a much more, we got to see how he fits in with this team.
Well, that's fair enough. My response to that would be is that's what he did it last year. Yeah, but to finish up on Crowder here real fast. Number one, just a couple interesting points because we kind of do this. I didn't realize his hands were so tiny. He's got little girly hands. 8 3/4 inches, which is very small for, especially for wide receivers.
Right. That's small for anybody.
Yeah, that's like Trump size hands. That's small. Okay, but
Jesus Christ.
But in college, he was productive in college at Duke. 76 receptions as a sophomore. He tied the ACC's all-time receptions record for a career of 283. So he's a productive receiver, and I'm not poo-pooing him at all. I just think a 5'8" slot guy, who's primarily in the slot, at least he has been, and maybe he's going to be moved around. I think it's a lot to ask him to be the leading receiver on a team, and we've got a classic number one style X receiver on the team. That's my point. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm nuts, but that's my point.
No, that's a fair point, too. It's just it's so hard to compare these things because this is a guy that came from Cleveland with nobody else, to really compete with him, it feels like.
Yeah.
Right. If you take the number one wide receiver in a team like Cleveland and put him in, New England, they're probably a 2,000-yard receiver every year.
Yeah. That's probably a bad example because everybody's going to be,
Yeah. But
the point is well made.
Yeah. It's tricky to say how effective he will be.
Yeah. You want to move on to Pryor since we're on Pryor already?
Yeah, we can talk about him a little more. Now, we've talked about how this is his second year now as a wide receiver. I don't know what you guys have read up about him at practice. I think the most interesting thing I'm seeing every time I see someone write about him is how he's deceptively fast for Kirk Cousins to, hit him deep.
Right.
He looks like he's running slowly, but he's so big that he's actually doing, Deshaun Jackson things. Getting down the field quickly. And Kirk is having some trouble adjusting to that. And we all know Kirk is not a good deep ball guy anyway.
Right.
I was going to say, I think that's an interesting thing to point up because if you recall D-Jack's always slowing down, with a 10-yard cushion, he always had to slow down and catch the ball. This is something that we saw over and over again. Probably going to continue to see that unless Kirk can really improve here in the offseason.
Right, and I don't think that at his age, I don't know if arm strength is something he can improve.
No,
so.
I don't think so. Listen, Pryor is a guy, to go delve back into his background a little bit, Pryor is a guy who has been an elite prospect from day one. He was one of the top prospects in the nation, and he was the number one quarterback prospect in the nation in high school. One of the top players in the country at any position in high school. He came in to Ohio State with, in very high regard, like Heisman Trophy level regard. And I don't know if you guys understand really how, not you guys, but the people listening really understand how fast this guy is. He ran a 4.33 at Ohio State once in practice. He ran a 4.38 at his pro day. Because if you guys remember, he got in trouble at Ohio State and they kicked him out of the program, and he had a pro day kind of separately on his own. He runs a 4.38 on a soft field, meaning not a good track field. Could have run faster. He's almost 6'5". He's
a freak athlete.
He's a freak of nature, one of the best athletes on the team. He wasn't a good quarterback in the NFL. He had a 56% completion percentage, which is why he's not a quarterback anymore. And he had the character questions. We already mentioned the one. He sold a lot of his memorabilia. Personally, I think that's just absurd, and it's
that he got in trouble for it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's a rule, and he should have known, and he shouldn't have done it. And there were other questions about him too. But he seems to have recovered from all that. If you believe his Instagram posts, he works very hard every day. So, I think he's got a bright future. His issue to me is he's still learning how to be a wide receiver, in terms of route running. So that's my issue with Pryor.
Well, I think you can see it, too. I mentioned it earlier, but he kind of goes down after the first contact. Like, he didn't get hard tackled. He kind of gets, wrapped up, and then he just goes to his knees, it seems like. I think that's part of still learning that, wide receiver technique. It's probably part of it. I'm sure he can still learn that, but I think in this first year, at least, that we're heading into, we're still going to see some issues with that. That's just what I suspect. I think if you watch a lot of his highlights and game tape, you kind of see that over and over again, it seems.
Here's my thing. I love his story. I love his, size, and we haven't had a receiver this size in forever.
Not one that's good, at least.
Not one who at least had the potential, yeah. But, here my question is, can he learn? He's a guy who made a lot of mistakes when he's younger. We've talked about him. I think life has punched him in the mouth a few times.
Yeah.
And I always say I love people who get punched in the face and then get back up and grow from that experience. And that's kind of what I hope we're seeing with him. When you talked about how hard he works out now, I think he's realized I can't make it if I just, coast. I failed at quarterback. I struggled in college with off the field stuff. I think this is a guy who's learned his lessons from that, and the sky's the limit with him athletically.
Jamal, what do you think about him? Do you hate him, love him? What?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say either one of them. I like them. I like him. It's kind of in between. So it's like, I think that the one thing with Pryor is that he recognizes what we see off the Instagram, and what we hear about him from the head coach throughout the training camp. I say training camp, the mini camp at OTAs. He recognizes that this is a big year for him, and I believe he's one of the top Redskins in a make or break year. One of them. Simply not for the fact that pressure is on him to perform for this team, but even for his own personal future, like Alex stated, he's in a position, and it's not just about what's failed in the past, but he's in a position where he turned down a multi-year deal in Cleveland to take a 1-year deal here and prove that he's worth more money. So for him personally, it's not just about the Redskins. It's more so proving that he can play receiver, and he knows how to play receiver at a top tier level, and he can be a team's number one receiver. I hope for our sake that he does prove that with us, and I hope for our sake that for the quarterback, we lock that situation up, and we're able to keep Pryor for another year or two if he ends up playing to a high production level. But I do like the deal, but it's on him to prove it, and I think that he recognizes the situation at hand, and we'll see where it goes. Personally, I think that he does have some things to work on, like just being more consistent. But I think that comes with experience at the position, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think he's got the potential to be a number one wide receiver, and hopefully it'll happen. Everybody's kind of overlooking Josh Doxson, and I don't blame you out there because he didn't do anything last year, and he had the phantom Achilles injury, and nobody knew what it was.
Yeah,
he's apparently healthy last year, and for the record, since we have to do it, his stats last year were 6 targets, 2 receptions for 66 yards. To include a long of 57 yards. Everybody remembers that long catch he made. Beautiful
play.
Yeah. He's another one of our big, tall, redwood tree guys. He's 6'2". The thing about Doxson is he's another elite athlete, and he's got a 41-inch vertical. He runs a 4.5 40. Despite the fact that he's 6'2".
Very similar X-receiver type. To Pryor.
A little bit smaller, a little bit slower, not quite as good an athlete. But similar to
more of a wide receiver at the same time.
Well, he's been a wide receiver,
right?
And
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
he's got that over.
He's got better control over his body, frankly.
Yeah, well, yeah. I honestly don't know what to make of Doxson, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, who does?
I think he's a
if anyone says they
card.
do, they're lying.
Yeah.
No, I think the what you really can talk about with him, it's not what do you expect. It's if he does well this year. I kind of have always looked at, and this is why I don't want to get too excited about Pryor. He's a 1-year rental in my mind. If Doxson can show that he can be a number one, Pryor's gone next year, and I'm fine with that because cost-wise, we're going to save a lot of money.
I wonder.
But I kind of think that's why we were okay with the 1-year deal for Pryor. At the same time, if Doxson doesn't show up this year, then that's kind of a setback for the team. That's a lost first-round pick.
Yep.
And we've been pretty good about first-round picks historically, except for
wide receivers.
one particular quarterback.
And,
But
Yeah, one that I can think of
And wide
particularly.
receivers, none of the wide receivers we've drafted at the top of the draft for decades now have worked out. You can go all the way back to Michael Westbrook, Rod Gardner, all these guys, none
well,
of them make
I
it.
remember I once looked at all the wide receivers the Redskins drafted in like the last 40 years.
You get past
the
Art
last time
Monk, and it's an embarrassment.
Yeah, basically Art Monk's the last guy we drafted who made a Pro Bowl.
Right.
That's it.
Or even was a
Good
player.
Lord.
Even played
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
The people don't need to hear that, guys.
No.
Michael Westbrook had potential, but he just didn't want to play football.
Yeah, and so did who was the name started with a G? He went to the Packers after us. He played with Westbrook.
Are you talking about Desmond Howard? It doesn't start with
No,
a G,
no, not Desmond Howard. There was Rod Gardner.
I was about to say
He had like 2 good years.
in like 04.
Yeah. Rod Gardner
Yeah.
was never
I mean,
going to
not
be a
04, like
superstar.
03, something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, it might be 00.
Oh, that long ago?
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a long.
I remember him with Patrick Ramsey.
Yeah.
All right, Jamal.
Oh,
Josh
Doxson.
Doxson,
Sorry
go.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Doxson, I think he's another guy like Pryor, who's in a big year. And obviously these two situations, their circumstances are different. But I do feel like Doxson, and Alex spoke on it already again, but it's his injury in year 1 makes it critical for him to bounce back and prove that he's capable of being healthy in year 2. Because if he's proven, I shouldn't say proven, but if he's showing that he's not capable of staying healthy for a year and that he's not able to be relied upon, it's a tough situation for the team, and you have to start looking at other options in terms of the future at that position. You thought Josh Doxson was going to be that. He's not the type of person that you'd expect coming out as a pro. So these type of things you want to avoid completely with a solid year, and it doesn't even have to be great, because, for example, I always look at ever since Bashad Perriman came out a year before Doxson, he missed his first year, and then last year he came back. He played all 16 games. He didn't have an outstanding season, but he showed flashes, and he also, he made a few big plays. So with me, when it comes to Doxson, I'm not expecting expecting number 1 receiver numbers, but I'm also expecting him to play a good portion of the season. I want personally, I would like 13 to 14 games out of him at the very minimum. Hope best case scenario, all 16. I would expect about 40 catches from him. This is the type of production that you should expect from a number 1 receiver that's coming off of this essentially his rookie year. So it's definitely a big year for him. But if he can't prove to stay healthy and that he can't be relied upon, then there's Ryan Grant. And I know people don't want that.
Doxson doesn't have a history of injuries other than
no. This was
he hasn't had a history of injuries, but he's had the Achilles last year. The year before that, he broke something. I think he broke his hand or something like that. I can't remember. And TCU.
I mean, that's a freak thing, a broken hand, though. That doesn't just happen.
So I understand that. It's just the fact that, and I'm not saying he has an injury history, but I'm saying that like a mystery injury with an Achilles, if he's still having that same soreness and pain this year, then it's not his fault. It's really not his fault. But it's
except for how he kind of misled the team about it, though, right?
Somewhat.
I don't know if he did mislead the team. Did he really do that?
I think the public was misled. I don't know if the team was misled.
Or maybe they just let him play knowing that he wasn't able to, he wasn't showing that he was capable of producing at a high level.
I mean, considering that Scott McLuhan, reportedly punched a wall last year, I think the team always knew about his Achilles and they just lied to the public, personally.
Yeah. So here's my question for you guys about Doxson, and Jamal kind of touched on it. What would you rather see? Him healthy for 16 games with very average production? Or let's say he only plays 10 games and gets hurt again, but in those 10 games he's putting up like 75 yards a game, number 1 numbers.
I'd rather see the latter, especially depending on what kind of injury
I was about to say that. It depends on the injury.
If it's an Achilles again and he's got some kind of chronic Achilles, no. But if he sprains an ankle, some fluky thing, I'd rather see the flashes of great. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. Personally, same thing. Depends on the injury.
All right.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's a tricky question. He's got a lot to prove. If he only can prove part of it, what are you hoping he proves?
Yeah. And the thing is, the more I actually think about it, I wouldn't be fine with 10 games. Maybe like 12. If he misses 4 games, okay, that's one thing. But 10 games, that's 6. That's a good portion of the season. 6 games is a good portion of the season.
You're missing about a third of the season.
Yeah. So
you're missing.
So 12.
That's why I picked the
Yeah, I'm
number.
about to say 12.
I think it's a statistically significant.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I'm not okay with him missing 6 games. 12 is cool. 4 is cool. But so I guess I'll have to go with the average season if we stay at 10.
Okay.
Sean, what'd you think?
I don't have too much more to add. I gotta say, I think in terms of Doxson, that is, I gotta say, I think it's just crazy to think we went from probably the most solid receiving core. I know that Deshaun Jackson was not Odell Beckham, and he wasn't Antonio Brown, but it was probably the most
he's his own
solid
type of number one receiver, though. Like
exactly, he's his own type.
He's an elite receiver. He's just an elite speed receiver.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But we go from that to what I think is the most boomer bust receiving core probably in the NFL right now. So much upside, so much potential downside with all of these guys.
You're right.
It's just crazy to think. So I have hope in Doxson, to answer your question. It's so hard to say what you can expect from him.
See, the one person who I don't see bust potential in at this point is Crowder. I think we have a rock solid number 2 at a minimum with him at this point.
Yeah.
Like he could be on this team for 10 years and doing what he's doing.
Yeah, that's true. Well, first of all, about Deshaun Jackson, I'll just make my bold statement about him. He's gone, and I get it, but I think Deshaun Jackson may be the single greatest deep threat in the history of the game. If you look at his numbers and what he's done, you're not going to see him run an in route. Square in, big route. You're not going to see him do that. But in terms
he's not going to stiff arm anybody.
No, but in terms of deep threat, he may be the greatest deep threat that has ever played.
I can't say I disagree.
At least in the top handful. We could debate that all day long. So let's move on to everybody's favorite. We all love this guy. We know him. We love him. The Apostle Ryan Grant. Yes, this is the man who has naked photos of the head coach and has been holding them hostage over Jay Gruden for 3 years now. He's 6 foot, about 200 pounds from Tulane. He's slow. His hands are overrated. He is Ryan Grant. I don't understand.
There is at least one fan freak out over Ryan Grant every season.
Yeah.
Now, and usually it's me.
I'll say this.
Usually it's
I've had long conversations with our friend Robbie Duncan about Ryan Grant. Off the air, Robbie's moved on. But we still talk to Robbie because we love him. And Robbie keeps telling me that college coaches love great practice players. And this is Ryan Grant, because he runs great routes. He tries hard in practice. He does all the things right. But the thing for me with Grant, and I'll kick it over to you guys, because, we could go over his numbers and everything. But, and he's got...
Do we even need to?
He's got 39 receptions on the career, okay? He's been active for 48 games. He's played in 8. Ryan Grant does
less than one catch a game.
Ryan Grant does not have the athletic ability to be a starting wide receiver in the NFL.
No.
That's my opinion.
I would say he doesn't have the athletic ability to even really be a good backup in the NFL.
Oh, man.
I would agree.
I would maybe put him on the Washington Valor. I don't know if he's much more than that.
Alex is scouting for the Valor right now. That's awesome.
I don't know if Ryan Grant could start for my high school
they can
team.
Get right now.
I don't know if Ryan Grant could start on my high school team.
Steve, that's so mean.
He might have gotten kicked off.
Cyberbullying.
He might have gotten kicked off his Pee Wee team.
Guys, since Ryan Grant is the Redskin that we have the best chance at interviewing next,
not anymore, not now.
Right now.
No, I mean, in all seriousness, I think Ryan Grant's a decent backup. I don't think he's got the athletic ability to be a starter. I know Jay loves him for the reasons Robbie says, but I don't get it in terms of hoping he's going to become a starter. I think Jay is delusional in that regard. I think he can be a quality backup, given the fact that he's such a great route runner and his attitude and everything. But I just don't think he's
the one thing that he does well, and Gruden has mentioned this, and we all see it. He can block on runs very well, which that's not worth a whole lot as a receiver in my mind, but it's worth something.
The crackback block.
That's a good call out.
Yeah.
That's a good call out. It seems like he's got the smarts for the game. He just doesn't, like you said, Steve, doesn't maybe have the athleticism. So it seems like that's probably what kept him on this team for all this time.
Well,
That's probably what part of being a good practice player is, right? Is you got the mind for it and you're trying hard. You just can't quite make it happen for whatever reason. That's probably Ryan Grant.
yeah, I think when it comes to Ryan, he's the type of guy, like you said, Sean. He's the type of guy who he understands the game. He knows what he's supposed to do, and he gets the shit done in practice. However, when it comes to the game, he knows what he's supposed to do. He has the smarts to get it done, but he just can't get the shit done in the game. And that's what really holds him back. Is like he has mental lapses in the game. And I wouldn't necessarily say I don't know the assignments that he has in a game, so I can't speak on the assignments per se. But you do see him sometimes tripping over himself, slipping, like I talked about Spates last episode. He looked lost, and I wouldn't say Ryan Grant looked lost, but he was just clumsy. He was clumsy as hell, and he probably knew what he's supposed to do, but he just couldn't stay on his feet. So and then sometimes I don't remember him really having I don't think he has issues with drops. He just always, him and Kirk Cousins are never on the same page, so it's always a difficult catch for him to make.
Yeah.
So, and I think that has a lot to do with him Grant and Cousins just not having that type of chemistry. And that may be one of the reasons why he's actually a starter in these off-season training activities. Maybe just to get them a little bit more acclimated as well.
You may be right, because it's interesting that you see Ryan Grant not make some of these catches, and like right there in the heat of the moment, I usually attribute it to Grant. Just looking at it from a hands perspective, yeah. I mean, but I'm not sure it's really his hands so much as it's a combination of not being on the same page with Cousins, but also, this guy is a mid 4'6" guy. Okay, that is slow for an NFL wide receiver who's not, 6'6". That's slow.
Right.
And so I don't think he has the ability to separate. And so when you combine hands that are, maybe not Jordan Reed quality hands, although
Personally,
they're good,
I like him. Yeah, I like him. His hands.
Yeah, he's got good hands. I don't think they're great hands. But, he just, when you can't separate like that, I just think it's really tough. That's all.
I mean, here's the thing. If Grant doesn't make the 53-man roster, are you going to see any teams clamoring to pick up Ryan Grant?
Grant's going to make the roster. There's no doubt Grant's going to make the roster. I think he's a lock.
See, I think there is. I look at some of these other guys who we have now, and they're better number 4s and 5s.
Jay Gruden loves him. I think Grant. We can disagree then. I think Grant's a lock.
I think preseason will show us that maybe Harris or some of these other guys, one of the quick boys.
Funny you mentioned Harris.
All right, you want to go to Harris?
Let's do Maurice Harris next, because he's the guy. Harris in particular is the guy that most people who don't want Ryan Grant in, most of the time they cite Maurice Harris. Maurice Harris is a different type of dude. He's 6'3", 200 pounds, long and lanky. Played at Cal. He's not a burner, but he's faster. He's kind of a mid 4'5" guy. His on a career, which encompasses only last year, he was active for 10 games, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 66 yards. So he didn't do much on the field, but I think people like his length. They like his hand. They like his quickness. He's a little bit faster.
Good catch radius.
Yeah, came from a good program in Cal. So I mean, I'm high on Maurice Harris. That having been said, of course, he's got a whole lot of people around him to compete with. But what do y'all think of Harris?
I think personally, and I want to get the negative out the way right quick.
Go for it.
I will never understand. I will never understand why people. And it's fair because Jamison Crowder was wide open. I understand that, but I would never understand people crucifying Kirk Cousins for Maurice Harris slipping on the comeback route against the Giants last year in Week 17. I would never understand it. It was almost the same situation we was just talking about with Ryan Grant, just being clumsy. Maurice Harris had a moment where he was clumsy as hell, and DRC it was an easy interception for him. If Maurice Harris stays on his feet for the comeback, it's a completion for a first down. Regardless of if Jamison Crowder was butt naked or not, it was a first down. We were still in the game at that point. That's the one thing I had. Maybe he was not ready for that type of moment in terms of when everything was on the line, the season It was a big down and distance. We needed that first down. And he slips. Maybe he wasn't ready. That was
Jamal. Did you have James and Crowder's naked body on your mind?
whoa. No.
Was I wrong in here? You said something about
Yeah,
James and Crowder?
He was butt naked, man, running wide open.
In coverage. In coverage,
See, you didn't
Steve.
specify
Not
that.
in
You
clothing.
said James and Crowder was butt naked.
Steve is
That's
very
all I said.
literal
Yeah,
sometimes.
I should have known better. But
I mean, it's okay. You can, you do your thing, man. It's all right.
Nah. All right, so he was running wide open in the scene. Jameson Crowder was.
Right.
Anyway, that's the only negative I have about him. Maybe he wasn't ready in that moment. With that being said, personally, I like Maurice Harris. I really like Maurice Harris simply for the fact that I love his hands. I love his route running. He knows how to get open on third down. That's where he was getting thrown to the most. He knows how to move the chains, and he makes very, very good catches on the sidelines. He has a heightened sense of awareness when it comes to sidelines and sideline catching and all that type of stuff. I really appreciate what he does on the field. So personally, I like him. His rookie year, he showed some flashes, even though he only had 8 catches. I think the sky, I wouldn't say it's the limit, but he can really become a serviceable number 2 if things don't work out with Terrell Pryor and they find a way to move on from Ryan Grant.
We'll say the lower stratosphere is the limit for him.
The lower
That's
stratosphere. Here's the thing. Fans and people love to talk about intangibles when it comes to football. I think people want to talk about intangibles almost more than anything else at times. Ryan Grant is Mr. Intangible. Like, nothing he has is tangible. Harris is the exact opposite of Grant because he has more speed. He has more size. He has bigger hands. He has a better catch radius. Things we can easily observe and say, tangibly, he's a better receiving target and option than Ryan Grant. Intangibles, I don't know because we're not at practices. I'm not in the film rooms. None of us are.
Right.
So we don't know why coaches love him for that stuff. They say that's the reason. And this is why I think fans latched on to Harris, like you were saying, though. Tangibly, he has everything you want to see in a receiver. He's got the right frame, the right build, And so I think that's why people get so excited about a guy like Harris. Now, do I think he'll be anything more than a 4th receiver for us? Not right now, but maybe he could grow into a 3rd and then a number 2.
I mean, the last thing I'll say about Harris. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I had a question. So I know Harris was an undrafted free agent. Where did we get Grant from again?
Tulane,
4th round?
Tulane in 6th round.
Yeah, Grant was a draft
4th
pick.
round?
And that's another thing, too. Yeah, 6th round pick.
5th round, not
all right,
5th round.
My bad. But that's another thing, too. A lot of people don't realize, and this is in general, Jay Gruden loves, he shows a lot of patience and loyalty to his draft classes, 2014 through to this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's another reason why people don't understand. He invests a lot of time in these guys. So Ryan Grant is one of those people that he drafted. I don't know who picked him, but per se, it was in his draft classes. So this is one.
It was under his tenure.
So it's another thing that people don't really look into as well. Like he shows a lot of loyalty.
Sure, but at the same time, you can say that about Harris. You can say that about Doxson. These are all guys that, if Gruden didn't want him on the team, they wouldn't be on the team.
Yeah, I agree.
The last thing I'll say about Harris is this. He was really only started for 1 year at Cal. He maxed out at 40 receptions his senior year, played 13 games, only played 9 games as a junior, and it went down from there. Only had 81 catches in college for about 1,000 yards. Mm-hmm. Harris is a guy that they see potential in. This is a guy who's a scout, maybe Scott McLuhan, somebody liked what they saw in him on film and thinks he had potential. They were banking on that rather than what he did in college. So I think
he's got the tangibles.
Yeah, he's kind of a potential film guy. Okay, let's move through the rest of these. Brian Quick, he's been in the league a while. He's with St. Louis since 2012. Came from Appalachian State, which is the top Division II school in the country. 6'4", 209 pounds. On a career, he has, this is over 5 years, he has 105 receptions, about 1,500 yards, average 14.3 yards per reception, which is pretty darn good, and 10 touchdowns. He's got to compete. He's about a 4'5", 40 guy. He's another
Mm-hmm.
tall tree we have out there. He's got to compete to make the
good
team.
average yardage for somebody who's not a speedster necessarily.
Yeah, he's got
14
pretty
yards?
good yardage. Yeah,
Yeah.
14.3 yards per catch. And some of those Rams teams weren't that good. Also, that's the other thing.
Right.
So that's Brian Quick. Does anybody have any words of wisdom on Brian Quick?
I would say that I think his career stats are more so. His career stats look prettier than his actual season stats. And I say that meaning his first. You said since 2012, his first 4 or 5 years, he wasn't really making any noise. He was very inconsistent. And he was drafted in the second round as well. And I think he underperformed mightily with the Rams, and I think that's the one thing that obviously that led to him being cut or let go. I don't know if I think his contract expired, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think his contract right now.
Yeah, so the thing with Quick is he just didn't show enough. But last year is what got him here. He had a big year last year, but obviously it wasn't enough for the Rams because they dealt with the first 4 or 5 years now. It wasn't more so that he was like, and then I think he was playing a new position, if I'm not mistaken. He was new to receiver. I might be thinking of somebody else. I might be, but
yeah, I don't think that's accurate.
But. Okay.
Nah. My thing is, I like it as a guy we brought on who he's good insurance. Like you're guaranteed that that's at least a decent fourth receiver on any team. Numbers wise, and he's got the playing experience. I don't care where he was drafted and if he was a bust in the draft because we didn't draft him. I look at that kind of like that defensive tackle we took a few years ago. Also from the Rams. I can't remember. Was it Carricker who was a first round
Adam
bust?
Carricker, yeah.
And everyone's like, well, why would you want him? He's first round bust. It's like, not for us. For us, he's going to be a good rotational guy.
He just couldn't stay on the field. You're right about Jamal about Quick in terms of his last year. He had 41 receptions, which is career high, 564 yards, career high. So certainly you're right in saying that's probably what got him to DC, even though the Rams didn't want to continue.
Oh no! What I was thinking of with Quick, no, he played 1 year of football in his high school year. Like it was just his senior year. That's what I was thinking. He was a basketball guy. So that's why I was saying he was new to the position. But
6'4", that makes sense.
That's all I was trying to explain.
Yeah.
I guess I would kind of just wonder, like, how he is. He seems like he's sort of similar to some of the other receivers we have on this team in terms of just, like, the easy measurable stuff, the size, the speed, that kind of thing. I'd be more curious to see how he is with, some of the other parts of the position, like blocking and that kind of thing, just because it almost seems like we've gone a little bit too much into one kind of prototypical type of receiver. We've got like 3 of them on the team now. That's my only thought. I actually think it's great because
more than 3 even.
You get 3 or 4 of them.
6, yeah.
That are exactly
right,
kind of the same player, is what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree completely with you.
That would be my only thought, and I think it's great though that he, of all the receivers on this team, he's probably the one that fans know sort of the most about. He's got the longer resume for most of the people on this team, so you know a little bit more with certainty what you got in him than you do with these other guys. That's all I really got on.
Well,
Quick.
Sean, I think you probably ought to have a little bit more on the next guy we're going to talk about, which is Matt Hazel, because he is from your alum, your alma mater of Coastal Carolina, 2015. He came. Yeah, so why don't you start off and tell us what you know about Matt Hazel, because I'm sure you know all about him, or at least something about him.
I got nothing, bro.
Nothing.
But he went to he went to a fantastical educational institution. So, hey, he's got the upper hand in that regard.
Well, fortunately, I do have some stuff on Matt Hazel. First of all, he came into the league through Miami. He played in 5 games. Doesn't have any stats. He was a 2-star recruit out of high school, which is why he was at Coastal Carolina. But he did very well there.
Hey.
No. Just let me finish, man. I'm not knocking Coastal.
Watch your mouth, Steve.
You're a small school, Sean. You're not getting 5-star recruits.
No, he's not. But this guy is actually the career and single-season record holder at Coastal Carolina. He's the best receiver ever to come out of Coastal Carolina. 183 career receptions. So he's some potential. He's a 6'5" guy or a 4'5" guy, 40. He's got good speed. Good deep ball. I read, this is Nolan the Rocky. This last little bit I'm reading here from, by the way. Not strong enough, lean build. Average length. He's going to get stopped, after the catch. But he does have some speed. He has some potential. So, another guy who's going to compete.
Yep. A lot of guys, I think, who can compete on the bottom of this roster this year.
Yeah. Unless Jamal has anything exciting to say
Nope.
about Matt Hazel, we're going to move on. We've talked about our next guy, Robert Davis. We already talked about him, at some length in our draft, show, a couple months ago. But I like him. I think he's an elite producer in college at Georgia State. 6'3", 220. He's got good speed. He's a sub 4.5 guy. He's very raw in terms of route running ability, so he's a lot of potential. And if you remember what Mark Bullock said about him, Bullock said he's an athlete, and that's kind of why they wanted him. He's got a lot of work to do. You can maybe see him being on the practice squad, but he's got a ton of potential. He's another guy that if it all clicked for him at some point, he could be a number one receiver with his physical gifts. So that's what I'd have to say about Davis. I like Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I like him too. If I remember correctly, I had watched him when he got drafted. I looked some of his highlights up on YouTube just to get an understanding of him. And he was a guy who thrived at I would say 10 to 15 yards off the line of scrimmage in that area, the intermediate range. He thrived in. He's a very fast player on the field, but he's not that good like with the run after the catch. He can't really make people miss. But he does have the hands, and he does have his route running needs some working, obviously, and I think he'll get that done here. But he has some things to work on as a guy, as a rookie. But overall, I do like the guy. Just has some work to do, but he does show some flashes of potential. Like he has the hands, he has the speed, and he can. Most of the time, he get open, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, again, this guy is the best receiver ever to come out of Georgia State. He's one of the best receivers ever to come out of the Sun Belt Conference, so he's got potential. Last thing I'll say about him is he's a relative of Thomas Davis from the Carolina Panthers, so he's got football in his blood, to that extent.
That's cool.
Yeah. Zach Pascal, next guy up. Now, Zach Pascal's from ODU, Old Dominion. So the other day when I was researching this, and I thought, it'd be sure good if we could get some insight into somebody who knows the ODU football program very well. And so I got a hold of, once again, our old friend Robbie Duncan. I said, Robbie,
we know somebody from there.
Yeah, it's Robbie, did you play with this guy? Do you know him? And give me something about him. And he said Robbie did play 1 year with him. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so he gave me a little scouting report on him. Robbie says that he's a possession receiver. He's not a blazer with speed. He's got good hands. He makes spectacular catches sometimes. Great blocking in the run game. Played a lot of special teams. Good after the catch. And he gets tough yards. So that was Robbie's opinion about Zach Pascal after playing a year at ODU with him. Pascal is 6'2", 220. He had 193 receptions at ODU. I'm going to take a stab and say he's probably the most productive receiver they ever had since he's in the NFL. But that is, I think Robbie's analysis is probably better than any of us could give on him. So,
I can't add anything to that.
Yeah, me neither.
No. If we draft a Temple guy, I'm sure I'll have watched him. If you draft an ODU guy, I'm sure our old buddy Robbie's watched him.
Right.
We'll just ask Robbie. Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's not that many ODU guys.
So we'll blow through the last few guys here.
Jesus, how many of them are there?
We had 10 receivers. Laverne Jacobs, who I know, Jamal, you mentioned Laverne a few weeks ago because you saw him play in high school. He's 5'11", so he's a little smaller, 185. This is a guy, he's sub 4.5 guy, so this is your small guy who's potentially a backup slot guy. Jamal, you want to stand on what you said about him before, or you want to add anything about him?
No, just I do feel like his potential. He has the speed. He has the hands. He's I wouldn't say a playmaker per se, but he does know how to make some moves in the open field. But I think the thing that restricted him in Maryland was the fact that he really didn't have a quarterback. So his performances were limited. He didn't really shine. He didn't stand out that much, which obviously hurt him in terms of professionally. I don't think he didn't get drafted. So that's just the issue with him right now. He just has to prove himself. Hopefully he can make a roster. I don't think he's going to make this one. I don't think he'll make the practice squad here. But I do think that if he stands out in preseason, I'm hoping that he makes a good career out of himself. I'm pulling for him.
Okay.
Did you hear that, Cleveland? You got a new potential player. There you go.
We have 2 guys left here. James Quick, 6 foot out of Louisville.
Not related to the other Quick.
No, not related.
Yeah.
He's 6 foot 186. He's another guy that has, he's a potential guy. He ran a 4.6 40, so he's slow in terms of NFL.
I find it ironic that we have 2 guys named Quick, and both are over a 4.5 40.
Yeah, they're decidedly not quick.
Most of the, probably 99% of the quicks in the world run a plus 4.5 40.
Yeah, that's true.
He's another guy's got a long way to go, to make the roster. The last guy, of course, Kendall Thompson. He's been here for a year. Kendall played a little bit of quarterback in college. I think the team likes him, which is why they kept him. He's 6'2", about 200 pounds, out of Utah. I can see him doing another year on the practice squad. So that is all 10, unless somebody has got great things to say about Kendall Thompson. That is all 10 of the wide receivers. We're going to keep 5 of them on the active roster, so you got to assume we'll probably keep at least 2 on the practice squad. And so about 3 of these guys at a minimum are going to get cut when it comes down to week 1.
Yeah, at least.
Yep. Agreed. So we all know who the top 3 are. Real quickly, why doesn't everyone just say who they think the 4 and 5 guy are?
Okay. You want to start off, Alex?
Yeah, I'll start us off. I'm going to say, and this is not me being what I want more than anything, I think it'll be Harris and Brian Quick.
Okay. So you're saying Crowder, Pryor, Doxson, Harris, and Quick?
Yep.
Okay. I think it's going to be Crowder, Pryor, Doxson, Grant, and Harris.
Yeah, I was going to say Grant as well, Steve. I'm going to agree with you on
Yeah.
that one, and Harris is the other
Grant
2.
Harris. I got the same thing. So.
There you go.
All
All right. So that's our...
I was just gonna say it's gonna be surprising to see what they do, because I think Quick is Brian Quick is the ultimate outlier. Like, is he gonna get bumped in for Grant, or is he just gonna get cut and go somewhere else? That's just interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably good enough to be on an NFL roster.
I agree.
Oh, definitely.
I just think Grant, the coaching staff likes him too much to cut Grant. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, no, I think you're right. I was doing what I think
What you
should
hope
happen
for.
more.
Yeah, not what you think. Yeah, fair enough.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
All right, well, so do we want to move on? We have another couple. We can do a quick little update here on the Supreme Court case that happened, right, Steve? So this was obviously a continuation of the. Well, I'm sure you can give us the background, but had to do with the slants, right, in the Supreme Court.
Yeah. The simple version of the long story here is you guys have heard us talk before about the effect of a case brought by a band called the Slants on the Redskins trademark case. The case brought by the Slants was at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court had an opinion come out this week, and it was an 8-0 vote that
so unanimous, obviously.
Yeah, that the government's treatment of the Lanham Act and their attempt to use the Lanham Act to reject trademarks that the government viewed as disparaging is unconstitutional because of the First Amendment. And so the band, the Slants, is going to get their trademark. And the reason why this is important to the Redskins is that this is precedent now. And the overwhelming odds are that the Court of Appeals, which is currently sitting on the Redskins' appeal, the Court of Appeals is going to have to bow to the precedent of the Slants case and then overturn the federal trial court's rejection of the Redskins case. So the overwhelming odds are that in about 6 months or so, probably the Redskins are going to keep their trademark or get their trademark back.
Yay for free speech. I will say that.
Steve
and I talk about this a lot, actually, on It's Just Business this week.
Right.
Which we just recorded before we recorded this show, but it'll come out later, so all our listeners can hear more thoughts on it in that show.
Alex and I have been talking for 2 hours now on this. The only thing to say about this is that this is going to end the legal battle about it, and the Redskins are going to keep their trademark. From a legal perspective, it doesn't end the battle in the court of public opinion necessarily.
Right.
Yeah. I think I can't add anything more to that other than to say, I think sometimes it is a free speech thing, and it's important to remember that this is a bipartisan decision, obviously. There was no dissenting opinion. So I think sometimes, things happen and they make you feel a little icky, but it is what it is, and this is definitely the right, I think, it's the right legal decision to come to.
The last thing to say about it is that this was an 8-0 vote. Okay,
That's not even
right.
Yeah.
This is not a case of, remember where I said before on the show was it's possible that some of the more liberal-leaning justices may try to protect the minorities and, try to uphold the Lanham Act. That's not what happened here. And when you have Clarence Thomas and Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the same side of an argument, that means it's a slam dunk and it's over,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and, you and I have talked about it. The First Amendment really is, it's the best amendment. So protecting it's a good thing.
It's the best amendment.
It's the OG amendment if you think about it.
So number one, let's get that out of the way,
Yeah.
You get to amendment number 3 and 4, half the people in the country don't even know what they are.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So I hate to say this, but congratulations, Mr. Snyder. You win again.
Yep.
Yes.
So, anyone else? Any other thoughts on the Redskins name change topic before we move on to this last little thing we can discuss real quick?
We'll have more on it when the Redskins case comes out.
Yep.
There you go. All right. So, Derek Carr contract, the effects on a potential Cousins contract negotiation. What am I hearing about ungodly money being thrown at Derek Carr, guys? Because I saw a number on a article the other day, and I had a heart attack. What is going on?
Well, you saw a number. What number gave you the heart attack? Was it the guaranteed or the total number?
I think it was the $30 million is what I saw. So
it's
like,
a 5-year,
it's like a
$125 million contract, so $25 million average annual value. And I
Exactly.
thought it was 40. Yeah, and it has a big guarantee. But I'm gonna have a lot to say, and it's not any of it gonna be nice. And so, does anybody want to start off with some more positive about this contract situation? And it's more importantly, its effect on Cousins.
He really did have a magical year last year. He has put up on a crappy team, Steve. He has put up some shockingly good numbers for a team that has been one of the only teams to be worse than the Redskins, obviously, in recent history. If we're talking about the last 5-10 years, he has done some pretty incredible things. So I think that's a positive to say. Obviously, the serious leg breaking was a disastrous end to the season. But yeah, I mean, he has done legitimately good things. He is a legitimately great player, and this is just the way contracts go. I think it's a shame because it's going to totally debilitate Oakland. But, he's a great player, Steve. That's the positive for you.
I'll just say, I think a lot of people are now just assuming this is kind of going to be where Cousins is because that's the way contracts work. I kind of wish the Redskins had gotten something done before Carr had gotten his deal, Now, if Carr got 125, the Redskins now need to put up 126 million or something.
And,
got to
and Alex, we all knew
knew
this was going to happen too. People have been talking about how the Redskins have got to fucking strike and make this happen, or this is what we're going to get, and this is what we got.
Okay. Look, first of all, Derek Carr got $40 million guaranteed signing and $70 million guaranteed overall. And I'd like to point out that my contract I designed for Cousins a couple months ago was 5 years, $130 million, with about those same guarantees. So I think this is where the Redskins need to end up. But the fan reaction to this thing has been Redskin fan reactions has been nuts. Okay, it's like all you guys out there seem to think that Derek Carr is such a much better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. Cousins is being greedy. Why the heck is any of this happening? And they're just like poo-pooing this entire thing. I think you guys are crazy. I think you guys are nuts. Cousins, and we're not Team Cousins on this show, okay? We bash Cousins a lot. If you
all the time.
We've bashed Cousins
when he sucks.
a lot. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, from a statistical perspective, Cousins has better stats than Carr. Yes, he failed in the Giants game. Yes, we lost a playoff game. But I think you guys who think that Derek Carr is so much better than Kirk Cousins are just wrong. I think you're wrong.
The difference, there is a big difference, though, Stephen, that's age. Kirk is going to be 30. Derek Carr is just entering the prime of his career, and he's already more or less proven himself to be a starting caliber quarterback.
Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough. But I think that the perception that Derek Carr is such a much better quarterback than Cousins is coming from Redskin fans. I just think it's absolutely inaccurate. Cousins fits this offense. He fits the Jay Gruden offense. He deserves this contract. It's a contract. he deserves 5 years, 120. He deserves the same contract or better than Carr. And I know some of you out there hate that idea, but if you look at it from a quarterback market perspective, he does deserve this contract. You people who think he doesn't are wrong. You are wrong. You are wrong. He does deserve.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, he does deserve a contract like this, and I think the Redskins still are going to do it, and they should do it. But don't look at this as like, oh my God, we can't give Cousins a $225 million contract because Derek Carr got it. Because that's just not the case.
Deserve is such a sticky word, though, because I think what you're really saying, Steve, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're really saying is Kirk has earned the precedent for the contract that Derek Carr get.
Yeah.
He hasn't necessarily played up to that sticker price so much as this is what the market dictates, and he's earned that.
I called this contract
I agree.
months before Carr got his contract. I said 5 years, $130 million. That is the number. That is the ballpark of what Kirk Cousins deserves. Somebody's going to give it to him if it's not us. It's just a fact. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll give it to him.
Yeah, somebody will.
Especially
is it
those that got over San Fran and Cleveland and Jacksonville if Bortles don't work out. So they definitely got.
And what are the odds of that happening at this point?
Pretty high.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. What is one of 100%?
Yeah. I think Kirk has the consensus here is probably Kirk's pretty happy camper with the news of this Carr contract, right?
Yep.
Like this is probably exactly what Kirk wanted to happen.
I think it's what he was worth
Steve,
anyway.
Yeah.
Well, and you're the expert on this, but him, holding out and basically forcing the team to franchise him again. This is kind of where that was going, right? I mean, this is kind of what he was probably going for.
Well, I guess I didn't say this clear enough. Kirk Cousins hasn't ever actually held out on the Redskins on this. The Redskins have not made him a market offer. Okay,
no.
The Redskins have
he's held out in the sense that.
Well, he didn't sign. Yeah. He didn't accept the offer, but the Redskins have never made him a valid, legitimate offer that the market dictated he's worth.
Mm-hmm.
That's not on
being
Cousins.
far
That's
apart
on
on
the
negotiations.
Redskins.
Well, being very far apart in negotiations, though, is the same thing. It's the same thing as holding out,
the Redskins have not come up into the bounds of reality. Okay, yeah, McCarthy is driving a hard bargain. Okay, but the Redskins have not entered reality.
Right, 3 years, $17 million a year was, I think, the first contract we heard about.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy. And so those of you out there who are blaming Cousins for this, saying Cousins is his fault, Cousins is being greedy, that is not the case. The Redskins have not met him halfway on this. They haven't come close to meeting him halfway on this. Mm-hmm. The fault lies with the Redskins, not with Kirk Cousins, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah,
the only thing I'll say is
disagree.
I wish that we would ever hear what Kirk's side has offered or said they want, even
demanded,
because they've never really said that.
That would be interesting.
Like if they are really holding out just to leave so he can go to San Francisco, then there's
the overall value, total value isn't going to be much different than what we're talking about. If they're talking about guaranteeing a third and fourth year, that's but it's an opening salvo in a negotiation,
right.
And the Redskins never really responded, so I don't blame him. I don't blame McCarthy for not bending on it. Why would you?
No, I don't blame him at all.
But the fans do blame Cousins for this, and that's what I just think is crazy.
Well, that's what fans do.
It's just if Kirk had played, I think, a little bit better, thrown a couple less interceptions in the last year or two, it's like I think that's what fans blame him for. I think it's because they see that and then they think about the price.
Well, it's like
I think
Jamal,
that's all that it is.
Jamal, you explained the interception.
Yeah.
In the Giants game. And
that was the one season-ending interception, though. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
I understand what you're saying, Sean. Like their lasting impression of the Redskins and specifically Kirk Cousins was the interception that lost the game and knocked us out of the playoffs. That's just what it is.
Yep,
right. Was a choke, exactly.
Yeah,
and I think that's what people can't get past. Now that said, I'm just playing devil's advocate, and for the most part, I agree with you. I think the deal should have gotten done and give the motherfucker the money.
And truth be told, we know us four, all of us, we know that we weren't going to go to the Super Bowl or conference championship any of these last 2 years. So what I'm saying with that is, regardless of these past 2 seasons, like our season was going to end regardless. So the people that can't stand Kirk Cousins want to find a way find a way to be mad at Kirk Cousins regardless and say that he don't deserve none of anything that's coming towards him in terms of a contract and long-term extension. So even if we did make it to the playoffs and we went to play Seattle and we lost that game, they would have said Kirk Cousins ain't deserve a damn thing. And the same thing with the Green Bay. If we were to beat them and keep that lead that we had in 2015 or 2016 playoffs and play, I think we had to play Arizona the next week if we won. Shit, Kirk Cousins ain't deserve a damn thing. They was going to go to the NFC Championship game regardless. Yeah. So it is what it is.
And the last thing I'll say about this,
Very
you
true.
know, for those of you out there who keep throwing the Aaron Rodgers out, you know, to us, please stop. Okay, I'm tired of hearing it. Don't throw the Aaron Rodgers contract at us and say, look, you know, look at what Rodgers has, you know, and why his Cousins deserve this. That Rodgers contract was signed years ago. It was a completely different market. You know, it's a ridiculous comparison. So just stop.
At least people have more or less stopped with the Tom Brady nonsense because everyone knows how unrealistic his deal is. Yeah.
I don't get it though. You would expect them to stop. Like they would, like people would assume, like he's just taking a way less, a huge pay cut, but just getting bigger bonuses. But they still wonder why Kirk wants so much money.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, well, people can't see context. I think that's the problem. They just compare numbers to numbers, and that's all they can do.
Especially with this Oakland. It's been annoying. It's been annoying looking at Twitter lately.
Yeah,
I don't mean to be overly negative to the
exactly.
fans out there, but I mean, some of you need to just get a grip about it.
Chill pill.
Seriously, yeah.
Chill pill. Well, this is what happens in the dead zone of the offseason here. So luckily we have football rapidly approaching, and the conversations will get a lot more interesting and substantive as we get closer. Right. So anyways, with that, guys, is there anything we missed today? You guys, anything fun going on in your lives we want to shout out here before we let people get back to their weekends?
Will Compton badmouthed us on Twitter,
yes,
which was fun. Because he was asking, hey, what are some podcasts people are listening to? So I pumped our podcast into the conversation, and then he's like, I'm not listening to a podcast by a bunch of Redskins fans. So, you know, it wasn't too bad, but you know, it did get a lot of likes and making fun of us.
For him, because that very week we were talking about inside linebackers.
We were bashing
Steve, you retweeted at him. Oh, you should totally listen. We were talking about.
Well, it was fair. Was it not fair? We started off him and said he was a starter. He has limitations. It was not. We weren't bashing Crowder or Compton. You know, I thought we had a fair.
I definitely thought it was fair. It's just the fact that it sucks for him because first off, if he does find a way to download this podcast and listen to it, Will Compton is the type of person who searches his name on Twitter occasionally. So if he was to listen to the podcast last week, he would have been very offended by what we said about him.
I'm sure we would have gotten a polite fuck you from Will Compton if he had listened.
Well, then he needs to stop being so sensitive. I mean, he's a football player in the public eye.
Yeah, you make millions of dollars. Yeah. None of us are even remotely close to that.
And you're a starter.
But don't be such a pussy, Will.
Sunshine and roses.
On the flip side, though, I wrote something very nice about Mark Rippon's nephew, and we didn't even get to this. Nice. Joe Gibbs' grandson is going to be a quarterback at UCLA, I believe, next year.
Oh,
wow. Keep your eyes on that.
By the way, 4 years from now, I'm hoping that Matt Rippon or Brett Rippon is Mark Rippon's nephew, and Jack Gibbs are our quarterbacks. So, you know, I'm looking forward to that.
The man himself retweeted you, right?
Yeah. I tweeted that at Mark Rippon, and he liked it and retweeted it. So, you know, that made my Friday.
Just get his daughter on the show. That's all I ask.
Oh yeah, she can become our permanent fifth mic. Is there any team more nostalgic than the Redskins, guys?
Well, it's out of necessity. What else do we have to talk about?
I know, but we are just obsessed. It's so
all that
true.
success we've had in the past 25 years.
Yeah. I mean, our name. We named our show after a good offensive line from 30 years ago. What do you want?
That three of the original Hogstein members weren't even alive to watch.
That's right. That's right.
No, I was alive to watch them.
You and me, but Robbie, Sean, and I guess Kelly was too. So 2 of the 5 were not around to watch.
Right. Yeah. And we just have gotten younger now with Adam and Jamal and
Jamal doesn't even know the name Hogs.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I think I understand my team's history.
He knows.
Yeah. All right.
So
well, that's what I had going on.
Oh no, that's plenty. So we'll give a final. We're sorry, Will Compton. We love you very much. Hopefully you're listening this week. And to you folks at home, have a great freaking weekend. We always love being here with you. Keep engaging with us online, and we will see you all next week. Y'all take care.